The night Delia Vance showed up at my door with two duffel bags and a face I'd never seen her make, I expected an explanation. I expected the version of her that always had a reason, a plan, a sentence, already loaded before she knocked. Instead, she just stood there in the hallway light, holding everything she owned, and said my name like it was the last safe word she knew. Then she said nothing else. And I understood that whatever I'd spent 4 years waiting for had just arrived without warning, and I had no idea what to do with it. My name is Adam Foley. I'm 34. I fit kitchens for a living. Cabinets, countertops, the slow, careful work of making other people's homes feel finished, while mine stayed mostly empty boxes I never bothered to unpack. I'm good with my hands and bad at saying things out loud, which is a combination that gets your shelves level and your heart nowhere. Her name was Delia Vance, and she lived in 4B, one floor up and directly above the only window in my apartment that got morning light. She was a night shift ER nurse, which meant her hours and mine never agreed about what day it was. She had a habit of laughing a half second before the joke landed, like she'd already seen where it was going. She carried a dented steel travel mug everywhere, to the laundry room, to the mailboxes, once to a fire drill at 2 in the morning. A mug so beaten it looked like it had survived a war the rest of her had only read about. We met 3 years ago when she accused me wrongly and at length of stealing her parking spot, and I let her win the argument because she was funnier when she thought she was right. We'd been something ever since. Not together, just adjacent. The kind of close that lets you memorize someone while telling yourself you're only being neighborly. That was the lie, of course. I told myself we were friends. I told myself the way I noticed when her light was on. The way I learned which nights she came home hollowed out and which nights she came home humming was just the natural attention of a man who happened to live below a woman. It wasn't, but naming it felt like the kind of thing that ended in her moving out. So, I didn't. It was raining the night it cracked open, the slow, steady kind that makes a building feel like it's holding its breath. I was up because I'm always up, sanding a drawer front on the kitchen table, because the silence in my apartment is easier to stand when my hands are busy. The smell of cut wood and rain coming through the cracked window. Then footsteps on the stairs, too heavy, too uneven for her, and a knock that wasn't her knock either. When I opened the door, she was soaked through and shaking, and the 2 bags at her feet told me before she did. Marcus, she said, just the name, and the way she said it closed every other question I might have asked. Her ex. The one she defended for 2 years and stopped defending 3 months ago. You okay? I asked, which was stupid because she clearly wasn't. I didn't have anywhere. She stopped, looked away too quickly. That's not true. I had other places. I came here. That landed somewhere I wasn't ready for. I have poor survival instincts around women who carry their whole lives in 2 bags and still apologize for the inconvenience. I stepped back and let her in. She sat on my couch with her dented mug. She'd brought the mug, of all things, packed it in with whatever she'd grabbed, and wrapped both hands around it even though it was empty. I made tea I wasn't sure she'd drink. The apartment felt different with her in it, smaller and somehow more honest, like the boxes I'd never unpacked were suddenly visible in a way they hadn't been an hour ago. You can take the bed, I said. I'll take the couch. I'm not arguing with me at 1 in the morning while wet. That got the smallest real smile from her. The first one, you sound like my mother. Your mother has excellent judgment. She didn't take the bed. We compromised on her taking the bed, which is to say I made the bed and she fell asleep on the couch before I finished. The mug still in her hand, and I stood in the doorway of my own living room not knowing what to do with the fact that she'd chosen my floor over every other floor in the city. The first few days, I told myself it was temporary, a landing spot. She'd find a place, get her feet under her, and the building would go back to being a building instead of whatever it had quietly become. I told myself I was helping a friend. The reader in me, the part that knows me better than I let it, recognized the excuse for what it was. But I needed it, so I kept it. She slept during the day and I worked, and in the evenings the overlap grew. She'd come into the kitchen while I cooked, sit on the counter I'd installed for the previous tenant, and tell me about her shift in the flat, efficient way of someone who'd learned to fold horror into small sentences. I started cooking more than one portion without deciding to. She started leaving the dented mug on my windowsill where the morning light hit it. Neither of us said anything about the mug. Her sister called one of those evenings and Delia took it in the other room, and I wasn't trying to listen, but the walls in that building had opinions of their own. No, I'm fine, I heard. Then quieter, because it's Adam, Jules. It's just Adam. A pause. Don't say it like that. Another pause, longer. I know. I know I do. I stood very still in my own kitchen holding a wooden spoon like it could tell me what she knew she did. It couldn't. My domestic habits are becoming threatening. The evidence started arriving the way it does, not in declarations, but in the small, unguarded things people forget to hide when they stop expecting to be watched. She knew which mug was mine and used the other one, the chipped one, leaving the good one for me without comment. She fell asleep against my shoulder during a movie and, half waking, didn't move away. One morning I found my work jacket folded over the back of a chair, a button I'd lost weeks ago sewn back on in thread that didn't quite match. She never mentioned it. I never asked. We were both very busy not mentioning things. Then there was the night I came home and found her standing at the window holding the dented mug, looking down at the parking lot where we'd had our first stupid fight, and she didn't hear me come in. Her fingers tightened once around the steel. She was smiling at the asphalt like it had done something kind. I should have said something. Instead, I backed out as quietly as I'd come, because whatever was on her face was hers, and I wasn't ready to be caught seeing it. That bothered me more than it should have, not because I'd intruded, because I'd wanted to cross the room. It came to a head on a Thursday 3 weeks in, when she found the apartment listing open on my laptop. I'd been looking for her, a one-bedroom, 2 streets over, in her price range, near her hospital. I'd meant it as kindness. I'd meant it as the responsible thing a friend does. She read the screen and went still. Not dramatically, just still. "You found me a place," she said. "I figured you'd want." I started. "You want me to leave?" That's not. I stopped. The honest sentence was right there, and I'd spent 3 years stepping around it. That's not what I want. I just thought it's what I'm supposed to want. She set the mug down on the counter. Too hard. The sound of it cracked the room open. "I've been here 3 weeks," she said, and her voice dropped just a little, the way it did when she was about to be braver than she felt. "3 weeks, and you cook for 2, and you saved me the good mug, and you have never once made me feel like I was in the way. Do you know how long it's been since someone made me feel like I wasn't in the way? Delia, I changed your name in my phone the first week I lived here," she said. Too fast. So fast it was clear the sentence had been sitting behind her teeth for months. It used to say Kitchen Guy 2B. Then it just said Adam. And then one day, without deciding to, I changed it to home. And I never changed it back, because every time you texted, the word came up. And I like seeing it too much to stop. She heard it after she said it. Her hand came up like she could catch the words and put them back. Something in my chest shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. I went still the way she had, the body knowing before the mouth agrees. I looked at the cracked mug on the counter and the open listing on the screen, and the 3 years I'd spent calling this anything but what it was. "You don't have to say anything," I said. "We can pretend the laptop was never open. You can take the place. I'll still cook too much. Nothing has to change." It was the exit door. I held it open for her the way I'd been holding every door open for 3 years, telling myself someone would eventually walk through and save us both the trouble of meaning it. She didn't take it. "I don't want the place," she said, quietly, almost a whisper, the way the truest things always came out of her. "I didn't come here 3 weeks ago because I had nowhere else. I told you that. I came here because there was nowhere else I wanted to be when everything else fell apart. There's a difference. I've been pretending there isn't." That hit harder than I expected, and so I said the thing I'd been sanding the edges off of for 3 years. Not the big word. Something smaller and more dangerous than the big word. "Every place I've ever lived felt like somewhere I was waiting to leave." I said, "Boxes I never unpacked. Rooms I never finished. You walked in with 2 bags, and the building started feeling like a place instead of a stop. That's not nothing to me, Delia. That's the only thing that's ever felt like something." She crossed the room. I didn't grab her, and she didn't fall into me. She just closed the last of the distance herself. Slow, deliberate, giving me every chance to step back, and when I didn't, she rested her forehead against mine like she was setting down something heavy she'd carried up 4 flights of stairs, and 3 years of pretending. Then her phone buzzed against the counter. We both looked. The screen lit up with a text from Jules. Did you tell him yet, or are you still calling him home and hoping he figures it out himself? Delia closed her eyes. I'm going to kill my sister. She seems perceptive, I said. She's insufferable. Runs in the family. She laughed a half second before the joke landed, the way she always did, like she'd already seen where I was going and decided to come along anyway. 3 months later, she stopped having an address that wasn't mine, which we both pretended was about saving rent, and both knew wasn't. The dented mug lived on the windowsill in the morning light permanently now. I unpacked the boxes. Took me 3 years and the right reason, but I unpacked them. A year after that, I built her a shelf by the window. Her request for the mug, which had earned a place of honor it would never lose. She still came home hollowed out some nights and humming on others, and I still learned to tell the difference from the sound of her feet on the stairs. She still stole the good mug when she thought I wasn't watching. I always was. I'd always been. Years later, when people ask how we got together, she tells it like a comedy. The parking spot, the wrong accusation, the kitchen guy who took 3 years in a rainstorm to notice. I tell it differently. I tell them she showed up at my door with everything she owned and chose my floor over every other floor in the city. And it took me 3 weeks of cooking for 2 to understand that the choosing had started long before the bags. Nothing important had appeared the night she knocked. It had simply stopped hiding. What would you have done if the person you'd been quietly waiting on for years showed up at your door with their bags and no explanation? And have you ever loved someone for so long in silence that you forgot it was even a secret? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.